Let me read to you from Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 21. Jesus says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Now, this is a fascinating passage because we might assume that Jesus is going to say, well, don't store up for yourselves treasures because, one, it would be selfish if you did it for yourself. Two, treasures are bad, and God's people should have nothing to do with treasures. And so you certainly should not be storing up treasures anywhere, and of course not for yourself. But that's not what Jesus says. Because right after saying, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth, he says, do store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. So, do store up. Command. Lay up treasures for who? For yourselves. He commands us to do the very thing we might think he's telling us not to do. But the difference is all in where we lay up those treasures. He says, stop storing them up in the wrong place and start storing them up in the right place. But really, it's not as much right and wrong as it is something else. What's his argument against storing up treasures on earth? Because that's the wrong thing to do? No, it's because they're not going to last. They're going to get stolen or burned. And you know what? If your treasures aren't taken from you, you're going to be taken from your treasures. Every one of us, when we die, and it's probably not news to you that we're going to die. We're going to leave this world. Yes, if Christ returns in our lifetime, and he can if he so chooses, but that essentially is the end of this life as we know it, the termination of this life. We all are going to leave our treasures behind, or our treasures are going to leave us behind. So Jesus' argument is not don't store up treasures for yourself on earth because that's the wrong thing to do. The logic is don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth because it's the stupid thing to do. Those treasures aren't going to last. He turns right around and says, do store up for yourself treasures in heaven. Why? Because that's the right thing to do? Obviously, it is the right thing to do, or he wouldn't tell us to do it. But his logic is because they're going to last. So store up for yourselves treasures in heaven because it's the smart thing to do. Don't be stupid, be smart. Now, that kind of goes against the grain in a way because we think, wait a minute, don't store up for yourselves. We're not supposed to do anything for ourselves. I mean, didn't Jesus say that if you want to save your life, you're going to lose it? Right, and then he turns right around and says what? But if you lose your life for my sake, you will find it. In other words, that which is to the glory of God and for the good of people everywhere is also for our own good. So when we follow Christ, we experience joy and we experience eternal reward for doing the very things he calls us to do. Hence, it is in our best interests to not store up for ourselves treasures on earth, but store them up in heaven. And sometimes we act as if, well, actually, okay, the Christian life, it's duty-driven. Yes, we have to make sacrifices. So I could take these treasures that would really bring me happiness and fulfillment, and I can sacrificially give them away so that people can hear the gospel, and children can be given medications, and people can be fed. And yes, I'll do that because it's the right thing to do, but I'm not going to benefit from it. And we've got it all wrong. Because, yes, it's the right thing to do, and it would be fully worth it if it was only for the glory of God, and that's all. or if it was only for the good of other people, and that was all. But that which is for the glory of God and for the good of other people is also for our own good.